Why do so many traders feel stuck? I can think back to the many years I've traded, and it's something that comes up still to this day where I just don't feel like things are going my way from time to time. And we're going to get to the root of that. What I'm about to tell you is going to feel a little bit personal, but I promise you, it's not unique. Meaning everybody goes through it. This is what I mean. Check this out. There are certain stages that you're going to have to go through in your growth. You're going to get to a point where, number one, you have an established edge. You know what you're looking for in the market. You know what types of setups you want to trade, and you know when they work, especially when markets are moving very well. This is an easy time for you to make progress. However, here comes the second stage. This is the period that I call the gap. Now, why is it the gap? Well, simply put, you have two options. You can either get through it or you can fall through and reset. How do you get through, and when does this come up? And these are all the questions that I know you're probably asking at this point. You reach that gap when markets get different, when things change, when you experience a consolidation versus a trend. That's that instance the gap appears. You say, why is it not working? Why are my trades not working the way I need them to? So what you do there, that's going to determine your success ultimately. And that's not the only gap. There are many. Maybe you go through a big life change. Maybe you get a new job. Maybe you're in a relationship and that ends. Maybe something's going on with your family. Those instances, again, present an opportunity for you to do one of two things. You can either take the time and say, you know what, this is probably going to impact me deeper than I might initially anticipate. Let me just take some time to have some distance from the problem. If you don't do that, however, you become one with the problem, and you don't realize that your actions they're reflective of something outside of your edge. You might be trading the chart because you want to have an outlet for your anger, your frustration. Maybe something happens at work and you just say, you know what, I just need that win. But that's never going to work for you in the long run. You might get lucky one or two times, and that's why trading becomes so challenging, because there is that luck aspect. But the probability states when you act like that over enough times, you're going to lose most of those times. And that's why you feel stuck. You could be the best trader, but if you have something that's weighing on your soul, how could you expect yourself to think clearly? If you're going through some sort of change and you're brushing it off and you're saying it's no big deal, how do you know that it's no big deal? If it's something that would affect most people, why wouldn't it affect you? Especially if you're new, especially if you're trying to get to that next level, improve yourself, and really start to change your life. These are the things that traders, they want to brush under the rug, but in all actuality, from all of the traders I've met over the years, I see this pattern happen over and over and over. And remember, it's not just a technical thing. We can have traders who maybe genuinely something happens at work and they get frustrated. I've seen it happen where people walk back months worth of progress in a session because of that. Trading is something that requires you to have the control and the restraint when you're making stressful decisions. You don't have to make a lot of decisions to make money. You just have to make a couple of decisions very good. It's as simple as that. You need to make good decisions. So what are some ways that you can actually survive this gap? Not all gaps need to fail. You don't have to go back to square one just because something stressful happens in your life. You have this opportunity between impulse, what you decide to do, and the stimulus. So you get something that comes your way. Maybe it's a text that rubs you the wrong way. It makes you angry. How do you react to that? You have that distance. That's where you could choose profitable habits, because otherwise you're back to the beginning. And ultimately, it's through the process of what I call a forced crisis. You say, things are already bad. I'm going to just try to get my way. Not realizing that's self-destructive behavior. It's no different than binge eating, right? Maybe you're stressed and you just pound some terrible food for you, or you go and you do something that's self-destructive. Maybe you go out and drink a bunch. How you manage stressful situations is ultimately going to determine whether or not you're going to get to that next third leg, ultimately securing the bag. Most of you guys can get to the gap. You can see when it starts to happen. You say, you know what? This is going to probably irritate me, whether it's the market going from a trend to consolidating real tight, or the ATR of the market might consolidate and just get real small. You need to know what is going to put you over the edge. Because if the market changes, if there's news coming up, if there's something going on at work, maybe you have to travel, maybe it's your birthday, you say, you know what, I'm going to use this time to be disciplined. Humans are predictable. So this brings me to my next point. We have two types of things, really two types of traits. We have edgeful traits and we have predictable traits. What are edgeful traits? Very simple. They are things that if you do them enough times, most of those times you will end up with a better outcome than not doing them. Meaning being disciplined. That could be journaling every day. That could be going to bed at a reasonable time. That could be eating a healthy diet of whole foods. That could be maintaining your hydration. That could be consuming less influential in the wrong ways content on social media. Maybe you really hone in on your work. Maybe you really hone in on your family life. That's discipline. That type of behavior bleeds into everything you do. If you show up to trading not ready, sloppy, not caring, how do you expect your execution to go any different? You're showing your character with everything you do. That goes into patience. Can you listen to someone who's maybe making you angry without expressing it? Can you wait in boring situations? Because if you can't, how do you expect to operate in the market differently? You don't think the market's ever going to irritate you? Are you able to look at the long-term effects of things? Will this impulsive trade right now derail my progress? And why would I take it if I understand that it will? Why would I do that? And it's because most people do not think, they do not use discernment, they use emotion and justification. That's what keeps you stuck. Justifying what you're doing. You need to have indifference towards the outcome. With trading, it's something that I call learned indifference. You have to learn to not care. Because otherwise, we go to the predictable category of traits where your brain becomes very marginalized when you are under stress or any sort of emotional just overtone. When you're emotional, people can read you like a book. They have you under their thumb, so to speak. And if markets are designed for people to lose, generally speaking, if most market participants lose money, the market is inherently designed for emotions to steer people wrong. We all know this. Everybody's beat it. They've beat that horse dead where they say it's all about mindset, psychology, psychology. It is. It really is. Because if you let any of these traits dictate your decision making, you're not going to see long-term success. Now, I point out these traits. There's many, many more. There's some that are unique to you. There's some that are unique to you over here as well. For some people, it might be they need to be right. I fall into that category sometimes. I get very fixated on things. That's something I know about myself. I mean, I've lived my entire life as me, so I know how I am. Do I get afraid of the market? In the early times, maybe first couple months, maybe first year, sure, maybe I did. Not anymore. That's not something that applies to me, but it might apply to you or someone you know. Pride, that could be a big one, I would say. That's very close to the need to be right. But what also applies to you over here? Are you a disciplined person? I could be extremely disciplined because of this obsession, right? I'm very fixated on doing stuff a certain way. So I can have the same schedule. I can eat the same meals. I can do that. I can do the boring things like that. But when you lose some of these, it will overpower this. And I'll break down exactly what we're going to see as a result. You could have 10 strengths, but if you have one prominent weakness, you can still not make money. You could still be break even. You could still have periods of just massive drawdown where your edge might be strong, but your emotional decision making just wipes you out. It only takes one day to really counteract a good amount of progress. So I look at it this way. You could have a strength, and that's 1 point. But if you have a weakness, that could be more than 5 points. So the score will never equal out if it's linear. You need to really attack these and understand what it is. And the reason is strengths build slow, but weaknesses burn fast. We see it in everything in nature. Creation takes forever. Destruction happens quickly. One takes a lot of energy, one uses a lot of energy. We have this common misnomer. With trading, we think that how we think is ultimately going to determine our profitability. meaning we think that if we try really hard, we put a lot of effort into it, if we can justify the reasons to take another trade, that's wrong. As long as you have enough understanding of the markets to know what a pattern is, a strategy is, you're smart enough. You don't need to overanalyze things because that gets you into the wrong mindset. The mindset isn't to solve the issue of being wrong. You will be wrong. The problem is, how do we fail or lose better? We can't lose with these massive blowouts that are driven by emotion, not technical edge. I'd argue most people have never lost an account on a lack of edge. Most of the time, it's a lack of mental fortitude. Most strategies are good enough to win at least half the time, make more than you lose. That's profitable over time. The thing with trading, though, it's that consistency that's going to create compensation. You need to do the right things enough times to make money. Because if you don't, you're never going to be profitable where those big losing days are still an issue. I like to reference a lot of quotes. I think quotes are really just wisdom of the ages. As you get older, you realize that people have lived many different experiences and you will never be able to live every life possible. But if someone could come up with something that's true to them, it's probably valid. So, applying that logic here, it takes many good deeds to build a reputation, but only one bad one to lose it. Tell me you can replace that quote right there. You could throw the word trading in there. It's just trades. If you take one bad trade, it really can end a lot of good progress. And a bad trade isn't a trade that loses. It's not that we can't have losses. It's that the type of loss. What does that indicate? Is that a loss that's going to instigate you to take more bad trades? Or is it something that you can tolerate? You have to really consider that. Every time you click that mouse, you're inviting your potential failure and explosion. So you have to choose wisely the trades you're taking. Furthermore, we can look back to even traders from the 1900s, trading during, the Great Depression. After spending many years in Wall Street, making, losing millions, it was never my thinking that made the big money for me. It was always my sitting. It was sitting right, sitting tight. That's it. You have to be able to sit on your hands. I know this is pretty basic. Everyone's heard that in some regard, but that incessant need to always be doing something is a reason you'll stay stuck. I know for a fact that is the truth because I've done that many times. It's very hard for me sometimes to say, am I being productive by not doing anything? And the truth is, yes, there's a place for that as a trader. You're not you're not an entrepreneur where you're always having to do something. As a trader, you need to be considering what you're doing more like chess. You have to make good decisions. You're a mental athlete, not a workhorse. There's a huge distinction between the two. And anyone who's ran a business, myself included, I can tell you that. The traits that help me in business do not help me in trading. So, what do we go from here? We need to find those fatal flaws that you might have. Everyone's got them. They're personal to you, but they're not unique. It doesn't make you special or bad or good. It's just you. That's your personality. Maybe you're afraid to take a trade. On the other hand, maybe you take too many trades. You find these things, you list them out, and you ask what applies to you. Do you know what you're looking for? Then maybe that's not what it is. Do you have a lot of stress at work or not? Are you aiming for big moves while discounting probability where a market might want to go here, but you're looking for it to go here? Why are you doing that? And inherently, that's going to be related to greed. And there's a lot of different things that you could look at in a very similar way. Are you burning out? Are you trying to do too much? Are you being stubborn while wrong? Because you could be stubborn, but you can't be stubborn and wrong. You can only be stubborn if you're right. So that's a huge one right there for me. I am very stubborn with a lot of things. Are you distracted when you trade, or do you sit down and are you actually focused on what you're doing? I can say for me, when I sit down, I can pretty much stare at the chart. I have no issue with that. But I might be looking for too much on the move. I might be trying to trade in the wrong times of day. Maybe I get caught in chop and I can't accept the fact that I'm trading in chop. There's many different things that might affect you. When you start to uncover them and you stand in front of them, shine a light on them, it will really illuminate the path that you need to take moving forward. So you identify the root cause. It's personal to you. Everything about trading is going to be a reflection of you as a human. So you got to identify that root cause and you start to work back from there. You put up safe rails, you get your safeguards in place, and you start to identify ways to ultimately prevent that from happening again. So one instance, if you overtrade, you could be using a platform that allows a personal daily loss limit to get locked out for the day. So when I look over here at Top One Futures, which you can get an account, there's info down below if that's something that you need. They have a lockout feature for daily profit and daily loss. So if I hit either of these thresholds after locking it, I can't trade anymore. So therefore, I'm ultimately delaying a continued blow up because I'm putting a safety rail in place. It takes a level of accountability. But if you're trying to start this journey, this is where it begins. You look at your weaknesses head on and you start to address them. Otherwise, you stay stuck. Your path to progress starts with accountability with yourself. And it comes down to this quote. Above all, you do not lie to yourself. The man who lies to himself and listens to his own lie comes to a point that he cannot distinguish the truth within him or around him, and so loses all respect for himself and for others. And having no respect, he ceases to love. How do you expect to make progress if you don't have any sort of affection towards yourself? You don't have any sort of value. A lot of people really end up living burnt out lives because they lie and they believe that lie that they end up living it. So you're not stuck. I know you feel stuck, but you're not stuck. You're just reliving that same story in your mind. Chances are, during this video, you wrote down some things about yourself. You said, you know what, maybe I am a little bit lazy. Maybe I don't do my journaling. I don't know what it is to you, but you do. And if you listen to that voice inside, you will know exactly what you need to do to start making progress. Breaking free of that is gonna be your step one. And that's on your path to decipher the algo.